Hi, Julia. Welcome to Maker's Bar. We're trying to create 1 million leaders. Excited to be talking with you today. I'm excited to hear about your story. Obviously, as you have right below your name there, CEO and founder at Aligned Recruitment. But before we get into Aligned Recruitment, tell us about you, your story, whether that's childhood, school, wherever you want to start that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me, Troy. I'm super excited to be here today and chat with your audience. All the way from the beginning. So I do have kind of an interesting childhood story. I'm the oldest of 7 kids.
Oh,
So,
wow.
right. So we talk about leadership, right? Like from
Hmm.
when I was growing up, I've always been leading a team, even if it was just my siblings at the beginning. And I grew up in a wonderful family. My parents are incredible. Some of my superheroes are them and my siblings. Some of my best friends are still my siblings. I grew up in upstate New York and went to college there. And then actually, my husband and I ended up moving to Atlanta, Georgia 8 years ago, where we live now. And we absolutely love it. We moved here for his job, but now we both work remotely, so we could live anywhere, but we've stayed. We just have an awesome community and really love this area. So that's kind of what brought us here. And then in terms of recruitment, I've worked in tech recruitment for about 10 years now. So hence the CEO and founder of Aligned Recruitment.
Yeah. So, did you initially out of school get into recruitment, or what brought you to the industry?
Yeah. So right out of college, I started working in undergrad recruitment. So recruiting students for colleges and universities. And I loved that. I did that for about 3 years. But then when we relocated to Atlanta, I wanted to get out of higher education. So I worked for a year in marketing, realized I hated it, and then moved into corporate recruitment. So I worked at the Boys and Girls Clubs of America corporate office, which is here in Midtown Atlanta. And I liked recruiting, but I did not like doing it in house. I wanted to go work for an agency. So after a year there, I got a job recruiting for Wilson HCG, which is a retained search firm. And I had such a blast there. I stayed there for 3 years, learned basically everything I know about recruitment, moved on to another agency from there, and then started Aligned Recruitment 18 months ago.
Oh, so what were some of the differences you noticed between in-house recruitment and agency life? Like what was some of the things that you loved about agency?
In-house is just so political. Like everyone gets like they get wrapped up in the wrong things. Like there's no focus on speed or agility or optimization of processes. Everything is just very slow, and I didn't feel like we were optimizing our time well. I didn't feel like we were really serving the needs of the hiring managers across the organization. So it was just a very frustrating, slow environment. Moving over to agency, obviously you have to deliver results for your clients. So there's a huge emphasis on speed, huge emphasis on quality, and I just loved that.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. And I think it's one of the things we all hate is like the politics. You can't, it's hard to get out of it. One way of getting out of that is becoming a founder though, and doing everything in-house and becoming yourself. And what was like the story of the making that jump from being part of a team already established to starting your own company?
Yeah, great question. So I've posted very openly about my story on LinkedIn because I know a lot of people can relate to it. So I had been thinking about going out on my own for about a year, but it just seemed so scary. I was like, I don't even know how to like open an LLC. Like I can't even begin to imagine how to scale a whole company. But then my former employer did me the favor of laying me off 5 weeks after I had one of my babies. And even though no one would choose to be laid off at that moment, it really was the push I needed to start my own agency. So I actually got a couple different job offers, and I actually said yes to one of them because I was too nervous to go all in on building my own business. But over the next couple months before I was set to start at the new company, I did get some clients at Aligned Recruitment, and I realized I loved it. So I decided to go all in, and I've never looked back.
Amazing, the burn the boats type of story.
Burn the boats, exactly.
Yeah, we run into those a lot here. I mean, as you could imagine, even in my own personal life with siblings or friends that have, gone out and started their own businesses, it really is like, I got fired, I got laid off, or, it was just doing well, and I just kind of finally took that jump, and it's so common, truly. And then
Mhm.
in those initial stages, what were some of the significant challenges, those big first hurdles that you kind of ran into?
Oh my gosh, so many. So I've only ever worked as a recruiter. I've never sold. I know a lot of recruitment
Uh,
agencies have you run it's called a 360 desk where
mhm.
you both have to sell into companies and say like, "Hey, can we please hire for you?" And then you have to go recruit to fill those roles. I never did that. I only ever filled roles. So I had never sold a single thing to anyone. I didn't know how to do it. I was terrified. So that was the biggest hurdle by far because I was like, if I don't have any clients, then I don't have a business. So I need to
Absolutely.
immediately. So that was huge. But I hired an amazing executive coach who specializes in the staffing and recruiting space, Diane Prince. I adore her. To this day, we still collaborate. I still work with her. She's a genius, taught me everything I know. And I mean, it worked. We've closed 900K in revenue in 18 months. We've worked with 20 different clients. We've had a lot of success, and I'm really grateful.
Amazing. And you're doing that in the tech space still, correct?
Yeah, we mostly work with tech startups, and our focus is hiring software engineers for them.
Very cool. Very cool. And that was that. Is that kind of what you fell into in the beginning there, or was there a reason you kind of just went more into that niche?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I've recruited across roles for my whole career. I've actually never been role specific. I've recruited sales, marketing, HR, tech, like a massive kind of variety. But something I'm sure you talk to a lot of your founders about is you've got to niche down. Like when you open up your firm, if you're a jack of all trades, then you're a master of none. So you really do need to kind of promote yourself as specializing in one specific role or industry. So I picked tech because it's what I've worked in for the several years right before I started my firm. And I mean, every startup needs fantastic developers. Like that's how they build their product. That's how they differentiate themselves in the market. And honestly, it's a really fun conversation to have with developers because I get to hear about the projects they've built that they're passionate about. I get to align their tech stack with the needs of the client. It just felt very seamless to focus on that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And have you found yourself enjoying talking with the startups more, with the resources more, the staff more, as you've kind of gone down this journey? I'm just kind of curious on that one myself.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So my role is heavily client facing. I'm the face of the company. I still do all of our sales. I do a lot of our recruitment as well, but we're actually currently hiring a recruiter because they're going to need to take that piece of it off my plate so I can focus 100% on vision and mission and sales and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So I definitely do prefer the client relationships. Those are really fun. I love interviewing candidates, but ultimately, as we close more business, my time is limited to do that.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
have to put it in higher revenue producing activities like winning new clients.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And it's funny how you can make that transition from you never did sales before to, yeah, this is the part I'm most passionate about. And this is,
Yeah.
you are the face of the company as the CEO.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a blast. Like the rush of closing a new deal is fantastic. So now
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
now I'm all in on it.
Now you're hooked. Once you got that first sale, saw those
Yes,
dollars come
I'm
in.
totally hooked. Yes.
And since you've been in this industry for so long, how have you seen it change over the last 10 years? And where do you see it going as far as change goes?
Gosh, that's a really good question. I've seen it change. I mean, the economy changes talent acquisition every couple of years, right? Like depending on if it's a candidate's market or an employer's market. And the industry, like each individual industry can have that happen at different times. Like my mom works in healthcare. Basically, ever since COVID, it has been very much an employee's market because people are just desperate for nurses, doctors, anesthesiologists. Like there's massive demand there. Whereas tech has been so variable. Like for 2 years, software developers can command like 250K salaries. And then for the next 2 years, they're getting laid off and they're hoping for like 140, right?
Mhm.
It's just, there's a lot of variability. So that honestly is what I've learned that as a recruiter, I've just got to learn to ride the waves and know that eventually it's going to pick back up. And then as far as where I see it going, I mean, kind of the same as everyone else. AI is obviously going to transform the landscape, both of software developers and their workflow and of tech recruiters and our workflow. So I'm all in on automation, except for when it negatively impacts client or candidate experience. So I know a lot of recruitment agencies are going with like robot interviews, where as a candidate, your first interview is literally with a robot. We don't do that. I don't like that. I think that's a horrible candidate experience. And I'm just not going to set that tone for how we interact with the people that we're talking to. But I do definitely support automation and delegation as much as possible.
Yeah, no, that is interesting, and obviously AI is the big thing right now that is taking over everything. Um, but I also personally, I mean, here I am hosting a podcast. Obviously, I like the person-to-person interaction. I agree.
Mhm.
I don't think you can really replace that part of business.
No, no, no.
We want to hear people's stories, and we want
Yeah.
to feel that connection. And this is something that you can't really do with the with a robot or an AI.
Yep.
And then as you've built the company, I don't think I actually asked this yet. How many employees do you have? Or is it still just you at the moment?
No, there's actually four other people on my team. So three of them are on the operations side. So I have an operations manager and then two operations specialists. And then we have a talent sourcer, someone who helps find the right candidates for me. And then, like I said, right now we're hiring a recruiter just because I've got to, again, forget my time to do more of that client facing work. So we'll be
Yeah,
a team of six, hopefully, very soon.
very exciting, very exciting. And as you've built the team, have you thought about like the company values and different missions or the mission statement of the team, and how did you come about those? And like, were they things from your own personal life or lessons you learned in the business, and maybe a combination of both there?
Yeah, we are extremely mission driven. So I know a lot of recruitment companies just exist like to make money, to be fully transparent with you, but our mission is much deeper than that, and that actually has been baked into our core values since before we started hiring internally. So when I sat down to start the business, I actually made a business plan and I literally explained like this is our mission, this is our vision, these are our core values. So for me that is actually vitally important and it's something I talk about with every single client, every single prospective employee of my team. And ultimately our mission is, of course, to provide excellent service to our clients and to our candidates. But I'm also a Christian, so my faith plays a huge role in my work, and I hold myself to a higher standard as a result. So, excellence is one of our core values because there's a verse in the Bible about working to honor God and have His like approval kind of be your North Star. So, that's obviously a much higher standard than most people hold themselves to. So, that's super important to us, and that's kind of guided everything we do. And then we're also very social justice driven. I'm a foster parent, and I feel very strongly
Wow.
about using the influence I have to care for vulnerable populations. So we've committed a good portion of our income as a business to social justice initiatives in orphan care and other social justice movements like that. And we really feel strongly about loudly proclaiming that need so that other for profit businesses do the same.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. And as far as your faith goes, is that something you grew up with in the big family you had, or is that something that kind of developed as life went along?
That's a good question. Yeah, I was raised in a Christian home. My parents are very serious about their faith. They became Christians when they were in high school and then raised us that way. And my husband's family came to faith later when he was in high school. But when we met and married, we both were Christians and felt very strongly about making our faith a central part of our lives.
That is beautiful. And to backtrack a bit, where were you born? Where were you raised?
We were born in Rochester, New York,
New
upstate.
York. Oh, very cool. And then you're, uh, as far as like the orphanages go that you work with and everything, what made you want to be a foster parent? What was the background there for that story? That is amazing. That's an amazing thing to do.
Thank you, Troy. I appreciate that. So, again, I'm a Christian, and the Bible is very clear that you have to take care of people in hard situations. So, it specifically names orphans and widows as two populations that are really deeply marginalized and don't have access to the kinds of resources they typically need. So, what I felt strongly about was the orphans side of that command in the Bible. So when my husband and I got married, he didn't. He was like, "That sounds really hard. I don't really want to do that." And I was like, "Okay, well, let's just get married and see what happens." So that doesn't always work out, and I'm not going to say that's an equation for success, but in our case, thank God, it did work out. And he kind of caught the vision just for the fact that there are literally millions of orphans, both in foster care and in orphanages. And they just need loving parents who are willing to open their homes to them. So, really, it was just the fact that I knew orphans existed and I couldn't sit here and do nothing about it. So that's what made us decide to become foster parents.
That's amazing. That's so you hear a lot of charitable like entrepreneurs. I mean, I've talked to so many that they go on all these different routes, and that's like the first time I've really heard this. And it is such a noble thing to do, and it's such a great thing to get into because when it is such a underprivileged group of people, I just you don't really hear talked about too much. So I do
Yeah.
love that. I can't wait to see. how that work grows along your business as you get more and more successful and grow a bigger and bigger business. I'm sure that as well, become bigger and better for you as too. That's a super cool thing. Should be
Thank
very
you.
proud of.
Oh, thank you, Troy. No, I really appreciate that. And yes, I'm actually also very excited about that. We see a lot of opportunity for us to kind of continue to scale that charitable aspect of our business too. So that is very important to us. And I'm not surprised that you've never talked to another founder who's a foster parent. I've also never talked to another founder who's a foster parent because both are extremely demanding, right? Like foster
Absolutely.
parenting is a 24/7 job and running a business is a 24/7 job. So I might be the only one. If you ever find one, let me know. But it's just both are very intense and both take a lot out of you. So you really have to be willing to sacrifice and commit to both.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of that, what are some of the challenges that I know, like we talked about those initial challenges, like even getting scared about I don't know how to set up an LLC. But as you've kind of gone through the day to day, week to week, month to month, once you've been established, what have been the biggest challenges so far? Like, what are the biggest challenges that when we hang up here, okay, I have to go tackle this next thing?
Oh my gosh. Well, when we hang up here, I'm going to go jump on a call with several more software engineers. So even though it'll be 4 p.m. Eastern, I've still got a whole docket of interviews to do on this Friday. So I would say that's the biggest challenge right now, and that's why I'm hiring a recruiter because I've got to free up my time so that I'm not on the phone with candidates all day long. I love it, but I do have to free it up for the higher revenue generating work. But I would say one of the big early challenges was actually I initially had a business partner. And after just a couple months, it was super evident to me that we were just not on the same page. Like she just was not closing business like I was. And we just weren't moving at the same pace. And I realized I need to build this on my own. Like it's not fair for me to expect someone else to work at the same pace and same volume as my vision and my desire for this business. So I super respectfully approached her. Like I like her as a person. We've known each other for years. Like I absolutely did not want to have any kind of bad blood between us, but I just explained I'd like to go out on my own and I offered to buy her out of the company and she took my offer. So we're able to part on very amenable terms, which I'm very, very grateful for. I know that's often not the story, but that was kind of an intense hurdle for me to deal with so early on in the business to kind of be like, wow, am I really going to do this? And then I was like, yeah, I am. So I'm very proud of myself for the way I figured that out. And it really gave me the confidence to keep building the business on my own terms after I bought her out.
Yeah, no, that is for me. So I had my first company was just a small vending machine company in college, and I was a senior when I started that, and I hired a freshman, and when he was a junior, I hired his brother, and I was very close with these guys, and um, and I kind of like, okay, I need you guys to step up, and if I'm gonna keep this thing going, because I'm gonna be traveling for work and all these things, and they just weren't really into it, and I get it, and that was actually one of the toughest stages of being an employee or owning a business of my life. Was like, okay, this isn't fitting the vision. This isn't going the way I want it to, and having that conversation of what are we going to do next? Are you guys want to be a part of this or not? And
Mm-hmm.
so that truly like, one of the more stressful times, just to build up in my own head at least, one of the most
Mm-hmm.
stressful times that you can go through is working with colleagues that you are friends, and when you see that kind of exit ramp coming. So I'm sure
Yeah,
that was very, very scary time, honestly, going on in your own head there.
it
And
was.
when you're going through times like that, how do you handle adversity, handle doubt? What are some strategies that you have developed as you've gone along this journey?
Gosh, so many, Troy. So, number one, my faith. Like I said, I pray, I read the Bible. I'm like, God, what would you have me do in this situation? Number two, I have an amazing husband. So, we always joke that he is the one and only member of our board because I go to him with a lot of questions about the business. And he's such a great listening ear and person to kind of process it through with, even though he's not a business owner himself. He works in tech and he kind of understands the industry and also knows me really well. So he's been super helpful to talk about stuff like this with. I have a really good friend who's a total lady boss. She's in leadership at an e-commerce company, and so she and I have had many of these conversations as well. And then honestly, a lot of mindset work. So I really believe in affirmations. A huge hurdle I had to get over when I started the business. I never had imagined I could be a seven-figure biller. Like I was like, oh, I'll make, six figures, be a recruiter, whatever. I never dreamed of scaling a business to 7, 8, 9 figures. Like that was just not even part of my purview. But as I started learning about how I was like what was possible for me as a business owner, I was like, that's on the table. Like I absolutely could scale this to a million and multi-million dollar company. So kind of shifting my mindset around money and affluence and ambition, that was massive. So to this day, I have affirmations that I record and that I've spoken over myself for the past year and a half.
It's amazing. Have there been any leaders in particular? You've mentioned a couple already, actually, but any leaders in particular, any courses or books, anything like that that have like kind of been North Stars for you, that have been big aha moments?
Yes. So the number one person I've got to get props to is Diane Prince, who I already mentioned. She's magical and amazing and perfect. I'm obsessed with her. Secondly, a huge part of our outbound marketing strategy is my LinkedIn presence. I think that's actually what caught your eye and made you invite me on Maker's Bar. So for that, I worked with someone named Toby. I'll send you his link if you want to put it in the show notes. He has something called a LinkedIn blueprint, which is basically like an asynchronous course. It's only a couple $100, but the value has been insane. Where basically he just teaches you this is what works on LinkedIn. This is how to sell. This is how to sell without being annoying, and this is how to be authentic without treating LinkedIn like a journal entry, right? So that was huge. And then I'm always reading business books. Like right now, I'm reading 10x is easier than 2x. A couple weeks ago, I read Grace Over Grind, which is specifically for Christian entrepreneurs, but that one was super helpful too. And then I just go to a ton of events. I speak on a ton of podcasts, and then I always follow the podcast interviewers, obviously, because they're always building interesting stuff. I just feel like there's so many resources for builders. So I've pursued a lot of them.
Oh, that's very cool. I love it. And you always got to keep learning. One of the things my dad installed in me and all my brothers at a very young age was like, be a lifelong learner. No matter what you're doing, just
Yes.
keep learning. And a story of his dad that I loved is that when my grandfather passed away, the iPad was coming out, and
Mm-hmm.
he bought it. He was trying to learn how to use it and like up to date on everything. And that was kind of his time when he passed. And it was one of those things that we remembered just you know days before he got sick. And it was a very cool thing, a good lesson that was very instilled at a very young age. So it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like a lesson that you've taken too in your own way, and I love that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm always reading. I'm always listening to podcasts. I mean, there's so much I know, but there's way more I don't know. So I'm
Oh,
always,
absolutely.
always
Yeah.
wanting, yeah, always wanting to expand.
Absolutely. And then kind of on that note, when you're trying to think of new ideas and just new ways to go about business, whether it's externally or internally with your team, how do you foster innovation and creativity with not just with yourself, but within your organization?
That's a great question. So my team is very smart. Every single person who works on my team is very smart, and they're very quick to come to me with ideas, to come to me with things that they think are great, but also things that they think could be improved. So like I said, my team is heavily operational because that is not my skill set. So that's why I immediately hired an operations manager and then recently hired two operations specialists to work under her because I again, not my skill set, not my interest. So I very much am passionate about delegating the things that are not in my wheelhouse to people where that is in their wheelhouse. So they have come to me with so many process improvements, so many tools to add to our tech stack, so many things that have made our business run faster and better and smoother. So there's very much an environment of innovation here, which I'm so grateful for. Like as long as all of us are working in our zone of genius, we're going to have amazing ideas about how to make it better.
That's amazing. And it sounds like you've built a culture of openness, no bad ideas, so to speak. Like just
Mm.
hey, if you have an idea, come to me, let's talk about it. And which is can be hard to build and even harder to maintain as companies grow, I've noticed.
Hmm. Gosh, I think it honestly wasn't hard to build for me because I was very aware that I was not strong in that area. So I was like, please come to me with your ideas. So I think I've kind of built that from the beginning on the operation side. I hear you though on the recruitment side. I think because that is my focus and that is my expertise. I think as I scale my recruitment team, that may be a little bit harder for me. I think that's a fair call out, but I hope this is actually a good reminder for me to really intentionally build that. I hope I'm able to do that as I keep growing the recruitment side.
I'm sure you will be. I mean, just talking with you here for about a half hour now, it's very clear that you have a great energy, open, passionate, high energy, just kindness. It flows off of you. So I'm sure your whole team is seeing that too, and that's why they're able to come to you with these ideas and just to help improve the business. It's very refreshing to talk to people like you, and I've noticed it's a good skill in so many entrepreneurs I talk to.
Hmm. Thank you, Troy.
Uh,
That's very kind of you. I really appreciate that.
yeah, no, absolutely. And then as far as like building up the team goes and everything, you already mentioned you've spoken these affirmations to yourself of, I can grow this to a multi-million dollar business. What is that long-term vision for the company?
That's a good question. So today it's March 7th, 2025. So right now I'm thinking about my 2025 goal. So that is to get to 1 million in revenue. My first year, we closed the year at about 650K, which we're very proud of and very happy with. So that's why we're leveling up to the $1 million goal this year, which again is why I really need to beef up my recruitment team to free up my time to go close more business. But as far as our long-term plan, I think I'd like to stay sub 5 million in terms of annual revenue because I want to continue to run the business, but I do want to continue to scale and then delegate more and more. Like eventually I'll have someone who's leading my recruitment org, someone who's leading my operational side, someone who's leading my sales side. So that's my ideal vision.
Oh, I love it. I love it. That is amazing. And once you're there, do you have like a next step plan in life? Like, do you want to just keep running this? Do you want to focus more on charity, or do you have any idea at all? Also, saying no is okay. I
No,
don't really have
Troy.
a long term plan
No, I
myself
have
in
so
life.
many ideas. No, no, no. I have so many ideas. Don't worry.
Oh,
I
I love it.
got a long answer to that question. Two thoughts. So, number one, I actually have a call next week with someone who does fractional fundraising for nonprofits because I really do feel strongly about building up the social justice arm of our business. And so, that's something that once I get the business to a point where it's more self sustaining, I can focus more on that charitable component. I feel very strongly about creating support for foster and adoptive families. There are so many supports that exist for the kids, like kids who are adopted, kids who are in foster care, but then the parents who have taken them into their homes, there's so few supports for them. So that's really where my husband and I feel strongly about building a nonprofit. So that's one thing I'll focus on when my time is more freed up. Then the other thing is we are totally going to jump on the digital nomad train. And we very much want to RV around the US and then live internationally for a couple of years. So those are my two big bucket list items once I get the business more self sustaining.
That's amazing. Where do you want to live as far as international goes?
We want to bop around. So we've looked at a couple different places in Mexico, a couple different places in Argentina. We love beaches. So we just need to be on the beach wherever we
Oh,
are. We're just going to go beach
okay.
hopping around the world.
Oh, that's amazing. My girlfriend, her parents are from Durango and oh shoot, what was the other place? It's close to Puerto Vallarta. Puerto Vallarta is a beautiful place if you want to spend some
Okay.
time there. You can
I'll
surf
add
there
it to my
too.
list. Absolutely.
Yeah,
That sounds
yeah.
fantastic.
Um, yeah, we need to get back down there. I need to make it more around South America as well. I don't know if actually have you ever been to Israel? With
No,
Christianity being a big part of your faith?
no, I
Uh,
haven't. I've heard it's gorgeous though.
yeah, there's some very pretty spots. Lots of great, just obviously great historical spots there.
Yeah.
That you can see walking around Jerusalem. But as far as beaches go, Tel Aviv is amazing. They have a nice long, like beautiful walkway. And at the very end of it is a surfing beach. It's just one of my favorite cities on earth, truly. So if you want
That's
to
so
add that to
cool.
your
Are
list
you a
as well,
surfer?
yeah, surfer and skier. Those are
Oh,
like
yeah.
funny enough, my buddy yesterday texted us like, "Hey, if you guys could live for 1,000 years, but no one could ever find out, and if you did find out, like you die instantly, what would you do?" I'd go, "Oh, easy. I'd start in South America, and I'd stay there for surf or ski season, whichever one's first. And once that's over, I'd go to the next place. I'd surf there. I'd go to the next place. I'd ski there. I just like easy. I just travel my way up north, like no
That sounds
problem.
amazing. That's such a good
Yeah,
plan. I love that. That'll be a fun
yeah. If
years.
I, if I was gonna just be a bum for the rest of my life, I'd just be a ski bum and a surf bum, and I think I'd be okay with
That's great direction. So see, you have an answer for what you'll do in your business
it.
that's sustaining. You totally
Y-
know.
yeah, but it's also maybe it's the American in us, but it's you also want to accomplish things, and
Of course.
build businesses and help people and do all the things. So
Yeah.
that is very cool. I love travelers. I always want to hear about where you're going and where you want to go and all those things.
Yeah.
Uh, but I can get back to focused on your work here in your entrepreneurship. And speaking of the entrepreneurship, what have you found that have been some of the most critical skills for your success and that other entrepreneurs need for their success?
You actually named it. So the number one thing people tell me is that my energy is what makes them want to do business with me. So I think because I come across, and this is genuine, right? Like I'm not putting it on. This is my genuine personality. This is how I show up at home. This is how I show up to my kids. This is how I show up to my husband, to my friends. So I think because I genuinely have an energetic spirit, I genuinely have a spirit of curiosity. So I ask a lot of questions during my discovery process with clients. I obviously ask a lot of questions when I'm interviewing candidates. I think that's really allowed me to be successful because people want to be known. They want to know that you care about them. So if you come with energy, if you ask questions, if you're genuinely interested, they're going to want to work with you in whatever capacity.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And you're right. I mentioned that before. Like, it doesn't take long talking to you to just like feel that energy and feel your passion and like, yeah, I want to know more about you when you're that type of person and when you're curious about others. People love to talk about themselves. People love to tell their stories. One of the
Mm-hmm.
reasons I got into doing what I'm doing now is I want to hear people's stories, and people love to be able to share it, and they love the platform. So, yeah, I that all of that makes perfect sense when you're explaining it.
I appreciate that. I think another thing that makes people want to work with me too is I do have a very unique story. Like we have obviously our two foster sons who are 14 and 15. We have two biological sons who are 1 and 3. I was laid off, like I mentioned, 5 weeks after my 1-year-old was born. And so you don't hear that. You really don't hear stories of people who had all of that going on personally and then also built a business. Like that's just a very rare combination of a situation. So I think that piques people's interest as well. And then when they meet me and they see like, wow, she's like not dying, like she's able to handle all of this and she still looks okay. I think that just catches people's attention.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. And at least for me, I love working with people and speaking with people who are, family oriented as well. I think it speaks a lot about who you are as a person. So for me, I love to see that too when I'm working with people. And something I hope to show future in my life is, hey,
Mm-hmm.
look at my family, the great relationships we've built, and all those sorts of things, which
Mm-hmm.
is kind of um, a personality trait in leadership traits, so to speak, as you could see, because you are leading a family. I think when you were young, you were leading your siblings. That was, I mean, 7 of you. You're leading the whole team. there,
Right? Yeah, we literally were more than a basketball team. So yeah, totally.
yeah, a
Yeah.
basketball team with subs.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
We had a bench. We had it all.
no, truly, and like you can kind of see that in your leadership style. Um, I mean, speaking with you again for the short amount of time, it seems like I can really see that there. And like
Mhm.
speaking of that, how has that leadership style evolved? What parts of it are just core to you? I mean, your energy, I feel like it's just core to you. But as far as like your evolution, being a leader, how have you seen that come about?
Yeah. I have become much more confident. So when I first started Aligned, even though it was literally only a year and a half ago, I was like, oh my God, am I doing this? Am I starting a business? Like actually. And now I'm like, yeah, like you said, like burn the ships. Like, yep, we're doing it. We're running this business. Let's go. So I think because I have that energy shift and because I have that confidence and because I've seen our success so far, so I know future success is coming, I'm able to lead with more confidence. I'm able to lead with more, kind of like you said, like more of an air of curiosity instead of like worrying and stressing about like, oh, we have to make sure we make the right decision as a business. I'm like, let's brainstorm. Like, what are some ways we could solve this problem? What are some directions we could go? I'm not afraid of the unknown. I'm not afraid to explore different avenues. So I think that's definitely evolved over time.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And then as far as the work-life balance, uh, I mean, especially in such a pivotal role, how are you handling that aspect of things with family, with selling as the CEO, the internal work as the CEO, COO, so to speak? How have you how have you seen that process evolve for you?
Yeah, Troy, that is the hardest question because so if you listen to other podcast interviews I've done, you can tell kind of like what stage in my building life I'm in because of the way I answer that question. So in other seasons in the past year and a half, I've been like, oh, I wake up at 4:30 in the morning, spend an hour meditating, spend an hour working out. Then my kids wake up, then I pack their lunches, then I take them to school. That all went out the window when my 1-year-old had a crazy sleep regression a couple months ago and I could just not get up at 4:30 anymore. So now I've kind of changed what my work life balance looks like. in that I work out during my work day, like typically during a lunch break, or if I can catch, 45 minutes between calls or whatever the case may be. I do a quick, 10-minute devotional when I'm in the car on the way to wherever else I'm going. And my life has become a little bit more, I've just got to be honest about the season I'm in right now and just give myself more grace and more space. So I'm a huge, huge, huge proponent of you've got to make your work-life balance personal. It's got to work for you. Your schedule's going to change every season with every kind of new life stage that you're in. And you just got to let it happen. Like in my experience, when I was fighting it, I was just pissed and exhausted all the time. But if I embrace it, then I'm like, okay, what does success look like in this season? What does work-life balance look like in this season? So for me, I've always had the hard line of I do not work more than 40 hours a week because my primary focus is my family. So I'll work full time and I'll work my ass off, but I'm not going to cut into my family time with the business. Business will always be there. The only place I'm not replaceable is at home.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. I love breaking that down into seasons. I've never heard it put that way. And it actually reminds me of my brother. He's owner at a commercial real estate. Oh shoot, I want to say he started a development company. But that's the long term vision. His day to day is brokerage,
Okay.
um, and super busy guy. They had the one kid, and then all of a sudden they had twins. So then all of a sudden they have three under three. And when you're saying like, I know I used to wake up at 4:30 in the morning, and all of a sudden I can't do this, and it reminded me of him going through a similar struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never heard anyone break it down into what does success look like in this season. That's such a
Mm-hmm.
great way to frame it. And it's a better way to be able to give grace to yourself, which I think all of us, I especially like the entrepreneur types. We all
Mm-hmm.
kind of lack that. We all think, okay, what I could be better. I should be doing more and all these things. And being able to break that, and we get into a mode of comparison with ourselves, with past
Mm-hmm.
selves, and I've just never heard someone break that down into seasons like that. I love that. I think I'm gonna keep that. You're like, hey, thanks for
Keep
talking
it.
about
Oh my
that.
gosh. Take it.
Yeah.
Tell all your friends. Yeah. No, it's really helped me stay grounded and stay grateful because otherwise, like you said, you're always comparing yourself to your past self, to other people, and just no one else is in your season. No one else is in your exact position. And you waste so much emotional energy when you're wishing your circumstances were different. If you just embrace it and then say what's realistic in this season, then you free up all that emotional energy and you can actually be more successful.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes so much sense. And then what would some advice be? I mean, we've had great advice already in this 40 minutes here. But as we're getting into these last 10, 15 minutes or so, what would some advice be for either wannabe entrepreneurs or early entrepreneurs? What what has been some advice that you've gotten that's really made a difference, or advice that you've kind of just discovered that you would want to give to those future entrepreneurs?
Yeah, the best advice is you've got to always be selling. You really do. So I know a lot of entrepreneurs start a business because they're really good at their craft. Like they're in my case, right? Like I was really good at recruitment. So I just started a recruitment business. But I quickly realized I've also got to be really good at selling or this is going to be dead in the water. So that's my best advice. Even if you've never done it before, even if that's not a natural skill set of yours, you've got to make it a skill set of yours or you won't be successful. So tactically, that's my number one piece of advice for entrepreneurs. And then mindset wise, like I said, that was a huge shift for me as well, of really embracing the possibility of what I could build. So I would say really kind of figuring out your vision, your mission, why you're doing this, why this matters, what's going to allow you to persevere through the hard moments as an entrepreneur, because there will be so many. So you've got
Mhm.
to have a really compelling reason for doing what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. That I couldn't agree more on both of those. And as far as selling goes, how did you develop that skill? Again, were these courses, teachers, coaches? How did you go about developing that skill, and how do you sell? Kind of part two of that question is what have you found is the best way for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, yeah, I've taken tons of advice from the experts. So, Diane, Toby, I also enrolled in another recruitment course. It wasn't nearly as impactful as what I did with Diane, but I took a couple nuggets from it, right? So, like we talked about before, I'm just always in a posture of learning. I have so much to learn, and I'm sure the way I sell is going to improve over time because I'm continually soaking in knowledge that I don't currently have. But right now, what's worked really well for the 20 clients we have worked with so far is leveraging every relationship I've ever built in my life, right? Because even though I wasn't selling before, I've been recruiting for a long time. So circling back to every hiring manager, every candidate, people I went to college with, people I didn't go to college with, but who graduated 30 years before me from that college. Like
Yeah.
there are so many warm connections in your life, probably hundreds. Everyone probably has hundreds of people who it wouldn't be a totally cold piece of outreach for them to reach out to. So I just tapped that network and was like, hey, I'm building this firm. I'd love to chat. Let me know if you're open. And I got a ton of yeses, got a ton of clients. And that was kind of my beginning of my sales journey. And then now I've learned how to do cold outreach that doesn't necessarily feel cold because I've built up my LinkedIn presence. So I do, because again, I work in recruitment. So LinkedIn is the ideal platform for that. So by posting every day and explaining our process and sharing our wins and sharing something about my personal life, I really helped build trust where people are like, oh, it's Julia. Like, this is what her firm, focuses on. This is who she is in her personal life. And it makes it, when I do DM them, it doesn't feel like a cold message because they've seen my content. They understand what I do. And I've built up a little bit of trust there even without speaking before.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And that's something that I feel like once you're able, what I've seen, especially with one of my brothers who is an online entrepreneur, and I think he's had his own business now for 7 years or so, and been burnt the boats 3 or 4 years ago at this point.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the big things I see when people go all in on something, is they start to build up that personal brand, that online presence, and it's really cool because like when I look at his LinkedIn, it's like, oh, I feel like your followers really know who you are. Like they know about your fiance and your dogs and you being in Carolina and all these things. It does give you a good sense of who this person is, and it's a really cool thing. And like you said, it's how I came across you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it shows you, is this someone I'd want to do business with? Because we
Mhm.
both know, like, you're not going to close a deal with someone who doesn't like you. So if you
Yeah,
show your energy and your personality, then I think that just gives people more of a chance to get to know you and get to like you.
yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. And then as we're kind of wrapping up here, um, what is next for you? What's coming up in this season and the next season?
Mm-hmm. Well, we're done having kids. So what's coming up is just steady state, status quo, raising our four crazy boys and just trying to stay alive, take it one day at a time. We're in heavy sports season. So spring is baseball, and then our 15-year-old plays travel basketball too. So we're just schlepping our 1-year-old to games basically every night of the week. So just steady state as far as my family goes. And then in terms of the business, so scaling my recruitment team. So right now we are going to make this one hire, and then that person is going to eventually become my head of delivery. And we're planning to hire a team of recruiters under them. So that's a huge focus for me. Like I said, I have the revenue goal of $1 million this year in 2025. So I need to do everything I can to free up my time so I can start closing that business. And then, of course, taking care of the clients we already have. Like, I am so humbled and honored and grateful that all of these businesses trusted me. Like, I've only been running my firm for a year and a half. And the fact that so many of them have said, yes, of all the agencies in the world, you're the one we trust, the one we want to work with. I do not take that lightly. So really doubling down on client delivery and making sure my clients feel valued is huge.
Yeah, no, that's all amazing, both from the family life work you're putting in and the entrepreneurial business work you're putting in. Um, it's just you seem like a great all around human, and I just love to see that. Love to be able to talk to people like you. It just energizes me to go do the things that I'm doing, and it's such a very cool just way to be able to get to know somebody and follow their journey. Um, and I'm just excited to hear more about it and see more about you as you go along. And I'm sure we'll talk again here soon. But I really appreciate you giving me a quick 45 minutes here.
Thank you, Troy. It was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for making the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure we'll talk again here in a few seasons from now if you want to come back on and we can talk about progress and lessons
Yeah,
learned and all those things. I'd love to have you back on.
I'd love that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.